Sarah, are you starting?
I can start
Okay.
unless
I
you
thought
want
you were
to.
frozen for a second, so I was
Oh.
like, oh.
Good evening, everyone. Obviously, we've been having a few little technical hiccups, so good evening. We are all here now. It is December 12th, 2023, and the time is 6:03 p.m. Um, and I'm calling this meeting of the Urban Design Commission to order. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the Urban Design Commission is conducted via remote participation. We will make recordings available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. My name is Sarah Lewis. I am the co-chair for this evening's meeting. And with me, I have Courtney Kirk, who is my fellow co-chair for this evening. We also have Madison Anthony, our fearless liaison in the background, helping us out. So we will start with a roll call of the commissioners present. Frank Valdez.
He's not there.
Madam Chair, he just shot me an email about 10 minutes ago saying he probably wasn't going to be able to make it.
Okay, all right. So Frank is Mark Frank is absent. Thanks, Kristen, and Madison. Andrew Abba,
Here.
Tim Talon,
Present.
Deborah Fennick,
Here.
Sherry Ruane,
Here.
and Tim Hood.
Present.
We're gonna do things a little out of order this evening. So we're gonna start with the design reviews. Just because we have a few board members with additional conflicts or commitments this evening. So we're gonna start the design review with the Broadway projects, 45 and then into 51 Broadway.
I
So
have to recuse myself from these projects.
all right, Andrew has recused himself from the Broadway projects. All right, so Madison, if you could unmute, hopefully people have their hand raised. And we can unmute. I will note that one of our members has to leave at 7 this evening. So as if we can make these reviews timely, I appreciate that from all concerned, and that includes the length of the presentation and the discussion of the board members. Reminder to the commission that this evening, this is an MR6 general building. And we need to vote on the facade, the design guidelines, and any other design guidelines this evening. So, with that, I will hand it over. Ben, are you opening it up for us?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah, and members of the board. It's great to be back again. We've been excited about this project for a long time, and it's nice to finally have some traction and get things going into the new year. With me tonight, I have Matt Murata from Icon, our architect, Allison Desbonnet, the landscape architect, and I think we also have Steve Sawyer somewhere around here if we have any questions on engineering. As I said, we're excited about the project. We look forward to transforming the old Broadway Break site into an exciting mixed use and residential project for the neighborhood and for the people in East Somerville. So I'll turn it over to Matt, who can give you an overview of what we went over at the meeting last month and what changes we've made based on the feedback from the board. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. May I be allowed to share screen?
You should be able to now.
Thank you. Coming up. Gets out of the way here. Okay. So thank you once again for having us tonight. We have both 45 and 51 separated projects, separate presentations, but as before, we also have a combined views at the end for everyone to see. As we discussed last time, team consists of Highland Development, Icon Architecture, Copley Wolf as our landscape architect, GM2 for site civil engineering, and Sullivan for attorneys. As it was stated, we are in the MR6 district. We are proposing a 6-story multifamily unit building with ground floor retail and access to parking as well. I mentioned we are constantly aware of all the different requirements per zoning in the form-based code and are tracking them as we develop a project and making sure that we meet all the requirements necessary. And Allison, if you don't mind, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little bit about context and some of the landscape adjustments that we have made since the last meeting.
Sounds great. Thanks, Matt. So I think we can probably skip ahead. Here's just showing the existing site conditions, which we kind of ran through in more detail during the first round. So just diving into kind of what we're showing here, this is our previous landscape plan that we presented last month. So when we met just during last month's hearing, we received feedback from the board on a couple items that we've addressed, just shown in the kind of lower left-hand corner there. So running through those. The first request was for us to study the egress shown along the north side of the building. So we were previously showing a concrete pad there, and we're asked to look into the feasibility of that and kind of how the pedestrians would connect to the street. We were also asked to look into providing a means of egress instead along the east side of the building out to Lombardi Street. And then the last request was for the green score, just obviously knowing we were making these plan changes to the egress and to accommodate that, then would we still be passing the threshold? And so we will go over that as well. So you can just flip to the next slide. So this is our new proposed plan here. This shows our modified design, which you'll see eliminates the need for the egress on the north side. So instead, the pedestrians will exit to the east and follow. It's graded at a less than 2% sloped path out to the Lombardi Street intersection. We think this is much safer and more direct than the previous iteration. And Matt will kind of go through how that works on the interior. And then just going to the next slide, this is our green score diagram and scorecard that we were asked about last month. So for 45 Broadway, we're aiming to exceed both the required and the target scores, which has been achieved in this design. As you'll see, it's 0.258 for this one. So any questions on that, we're happy to answer. But that was just a quick update on the landscape. I'm going to pass it over to Matt now.
Thanks, Allison. So as before, the previous time we met, we did present the 3 different options. I think there was a general consensus that the board was very happy with option 2 overall, with a little bit of option 3 for some of the brickwork on 45 Broadway. And we'll present our combined design scheme to you tonight. A couple of quick plan tweaks that we've made. As this is the plan that we previously showed you before, which does have the egress going out to the back side of the site, that which in question. And in our new scheme, as Allison mentioned, we have now relocated that egress there and are egressing out towards Lombardi for a much cleaner, quicker connection, which will not interfere with the back landscaping whatsoever. A couple other tweaks were some bike room changes and parking changes at grade. These were the 3 schemes that we previously presented to you all. As I mentioned, I think the general consensus was option 2 overall. with the brickwork on 45 Broadway, the lower right-hand option 3 there. And along as well, there was comments about the materiality, and how some of the shingles might not be better appropriate for roofing materials. So we've adjusted some of the materials, we've adjusted the design a bit and tweaked it to hopefully accommodate all the requests. Looking at the elevations quickly, and I'll flip to the perspectives. Again, this was the preferred scheme for 45. Nice textured brickwork between the windows, a very clear distinction between the base, middle, and top. Our little wedge coming off the building there, shielding egress now off the side, and allowing us to have a fun, funky little piece that interacts with the intersection. All the images will have are the previous version up in a corner somewhere, just for reference. But here we have the combined option 3, where we did look at taking the reddish brick with the textures between windows. We've adjusted the siding to reflect a ATAS design wall metal panel system in lieu of the shingles, but still a good rain screen system that allows us the ability to have staggered seams and joints, so it's not all just clean lines. Again, we have taken the egress out along Lombardi, utilizing the wedge shape above to help shield from the elements and provide access to that side of the building. And moving around the corner, where we previously had just regular brick coming around the back side of the building towards the I-93 side, we did feel it was important to continue that expression of the textured brick around the corner as well. And again, updating the materials to reflect the design wall metal panel in lieu of the shingles. Looking down Broadway again, this is a little bit difficult to see in this perspective because it does focus more on 51. But again, we've taken that middle section of the building there with the darker siding and allowed that to come lap up and over the massing of 45. This was discussed the last time as possibly a way to help integrate the two buildings, which I think it has done successfully. And then continuing similar patterns with the windows as well, utilizing some accent panels on the top 2 floors on the 45 Broadway section. For materials, I think we were asked to elaborate a little bit more. While we haven't pulled selections from our brick manufacturer yet, we are planning for a multiple brick selection, lots of colors, although they will all be tied well together. So we are proposing a tan brick at the base of the building, more of a reddish brick up at the body of the building where we have some of the textured patterning. Then again, the ATAS design wall metal panels at the top and at the wedge. Excuse me. And coming around the back of the building, all those materials are also repeated. And I'll wait to get into 51 Broadway in the next iteration. There was a little bit of discussion about how we approach some of our detailing with these lap siding materials. While 45 doesn't have any specifically lap only, we do like to integrate very clean looking corner reglets whenever possible. Illustrated here is an option that is not color match, but we can also color match, which is usually our preference. But just wanted to get some of these details in front of you to illustrate how we approach some of these corner conditions. And that wraps up the changes for 45 Broadway.
All right, at this point, do we have any specific questions from, yes, we do, from Sherry and then Deborah.
I just wanted to say I think the improvements are great on the landscape. I think it's a much cleaner interface, much more consistent overall. That's it.
Thank you.
Deborah?
I just have one quick question, which is the design wall material. What is the material of that? Can you, I think I've seen it in zinc.
It's a newer
And other-
material. Sorry, it's a newer material from ATAS. It's kind of in line with their VersaLock and VersaSeam product lines. So it's a metal panel that has turned in edges that creates a rain screen system. And I selected this specifically because I've had instances with other ATAS materials like the VersaLock that had oil canning. This product's a little thicker, a little bit more robust, so it won't do that.
But I think I have seen it in zinc. Maybe I'm imagining it. But is it a zinc? Is it you know, a painted metal or?
Yeah. It's very like your traditional metal panel shingles siding material.
But is it the material zinc or is it a painted material?
I will find out exactly what it is. I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks.
Tim Hood.
Thanks for the presentation. I love seeing the attention to the detail at the corner. It's very nice. I just had one question. In the bump out below the ATAS panel, is that the same kind of ATAS panel, or is that like a different, different color or different?
Oh, my plan would be to specify a larger metal panel to accommodate that larger look, that's more streamlined look, but in the same family of manufacturer. Okay, and the column, it looks like you're showing a round column. Is that just like a painted concrete or? No, we would do an ATAS metal panel cover. Okay. Trying to keep the materials consistent. Okay. I didn't have other questions, so thank you.
All right, Tim Talent, do you have any questions before
Yeah.
we move on to the next presentation? And
Well, I think overall you've done a great job with the building. Appreciate the improvements. Just one question about the ground floor and the change in the egress corridor. So did that reduce the size of the retail space?
Slightly, yeah. Yep.
Okay, but you're using that back corner for
For the bike
parking.
storage, yeah.
And are there windows into the bike parking? Because
Yes,
it looked
there-
like those windows might have gone away.
No, there's still windows on that backside, yeah.
Okay. Well, overall, I think you've done a great job with the composition, the materiality. The panels look pretty dark, compared to the zinc that we saw last time. So I think as you look, if this is a painted metal panel, I'd suggest you think more towards the kind of charcoal rather than a black metal panel. And then I think you have a great framework here for continuing to develop the detailing of the building. After you presented last time, I was thinking of the 451 Marlborough project, which has a similar type of brick detailing, the running bond, and then kind of setting in every other course. So I think as you move forward, just thinking about the relationship between those, the textured brick and the flat brick. In the renderings, it appears that the textured brick is kind of proud of the face brick. I wonder if that wants to reseed more. So you read the frame, and then you have kind of a recessed textured brick.
Thanks, Tim. Totally appreciate those comments and agree that the brick should be inset more of a frame to read like a whole unit between the two windows.
all right, so
Excuse me, Can I ask you a question? Tim, I'm not familiar with the 451 Marlborough project that you referenced. Is that in Somerville?
No, it's in Boston. I think it's in Back Bay.
Okay, so Marlborough Street, 451 Marlborough Street. We'll check that out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
all right, so at this point, would the commission like to vote on on 45 Broadway? Or would the commission, knowing that these abut each other, would we like to see the presentation for 51 first before taking a vote on either project? I'm seeing nods from Deborah.
I'd be comfortable either way.
I'm open to either as well.
Okay, well, seeing as we had a nod for Deborah, let's do the presentation for 51 Broadway first, and then we can make sure there's no specific questions and then discuss
Great. In 1 second, I'll pop that one up. Oops. Sorry. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble here getting it to show. It's saying my screen sharing is paused and I'm unable to resume share.
Okay, Madison, can you check that, please?
Yeah, let me try to figure out what's going on. All right, why don't you try again now?
Here we go. Thank you. All right. Moving forward to the opposite side of the building, 51 Broadway. You guys know the team. You know what we're talking about here for building type. As before, we're always watching the zoning and requirements. And I'll pass it off to Allison and start talking about some of the design changes.
Thanks, Matt. So again, we're just looking at the existing site here. Can scoot forward. And one more, I think we're pretty familiar at this point. So the update for the landscape for 51 Broadway is really just showing that we did not end up egressing out to that side. Again, this is the previous plan. So we did just want to at least give an update on the green score, since that was something that is affected as well. And so this is our proposed plan. We were able to, again, keep that 10-foot setback of straight landscape area on both the north and west sides of the building. Just going to the next slide. This is our green score for 51. So again, our real goal here is to be above both the required and target scores, which we have been able to do. So we're at 0.301 at the moment with this design. I'm passing it back to Matt.
Thanks, Allison. So a couple of plan tweaks that we've made. These are the previous plans that we presented to you, where we're illustrating access off of Broadway at the corner of the building down to below grade parking. The biggest change now is we're now just parking at grade, still accessing everything from the same location, but also providing a more convenient drop off and turnaround area for residents. Again, 3 schemes that we previously presented on 51 Broadway, the consensus was fully option 2, which is what we have done to move forward. Just reminding you all where we ended up. Oops, sorry, I take a step back. A couple of material changes. Again, we discussed the metal siding, which is proposed to be the ATAS design wall. We also talked a little bit about, is there a way to allow that dark siding, the material, to come down as a central mass element. And while we can't push the facade back because of our 30-foot requirement for retail, we are looking at a darker brick color in that area to accent and work in conjunction with the metal panel above. Looking at it from Broadway, again, I think this is a good illustration of that separation in the middle, showing these bay elements, helping step the massing back and forth, and then coming down to grade, still utilizing a dark brick, something possibly with a little iron spotting that has a little bit of color fleck to it. I think would be really, really sharp in there. And we left the left side massing as fiber cement lap siding, but we did change to a little bit more robust product in the Aspire series that we'll get into down in a few slides. Sorry, one question before I get to the end here. I do have the combined perspectives after this presentation. If it'd be helpful for me to just to run through those directly after, or we can stop, pause for comments, and then go into it however you guys want to approach it. It's fine for me. Looking on the back side, not much has changed here. Just again, changing the any of the materials associated with the shingle to design wall. Coming around to the front perspective, looking into the drop-off area, again, we are still proposing to do some art element similar to what's on the I-93 retaining wall. And so we are proposing still maintaining a 7-inch exposure lap siding at the body of the building, and adjusting at the top to a Aspire channel lock system. We do feel this is appropriate at this end of the building as we are coming down to the more residential neighborhood, trying to get a little bit more fine grained with the textures, something that's associated with the smaller triple decker buildings that were in the neighborhood adjacent to us. Again, just pointing out all the different materials, the 7-inch lap exposure, which I mentioned, and then the channel lock siding, which has about a 9-inch exposure. The channel lock is a more robust material as well, a little bit thicker of a product. It also needs to be on a rain screen system. But coming around the back side of the building, just illustrating how the materials do transition to the back. I don't think we had previously showed a perspective looking at that side. Again, we already talked about this, but this is where these details would be more appropriate, where we're talking about some of these fiber cement conditions. Again, we usually do a color match reglet, not a accent color, but do take care in those details to make sure that there's nice, clean transitions that are contemporary. And that wraps up the updates for 51. And if you don't mind, I'll just run through the three main perspectives that combine both of them, just so you guys can clearly see the whole project as one, if that's all right. I'm seeing a nod from Sarah, so I'll go ahead. Looking from Broadway, once again, you can see here clearly the design wall, which laps up and around the brick massing at the corner. I think this was really successful in having the building still appear as two separate buildings, but having commonality between two of them. The wedge shape getting a little bit cleaner in its fenestration. I think before we were illustrating a lot more color and different pops of things, which might have been a little too busy, but still utilizing some slight variation in the material as was mentioned, but still along the same product line of the metal panel itself. Looking at the center of the building, I mentioned that we did start to look at really, what can we do to help make this feel like it's coming down to the ground. While we can't recess it anymore, we do want to try and match a brick color that's very complementary to the main mass of the building in the center. Coming around the back side, I talked about before, we did want to continue some of that brick fenestration and texture along the back to make it a continuous facade. Looking down Broadway again as a whole, with the change in some of the lap siding on the 51 Broadway piece. Again, you can really see how we started to incorporate little accent pieces that speak to both sides of the project. And that concludes the presentation.
All right.
Oh,
Do we have any questions on 51 Broadway? Sorry, Sherry, carry on.
No, it's all right. I just want to chime in quickly. So I think it was helpful to see the green score and just that the changes comply with all those requirements. I think the architecture has come a long way since the last presentation. I think it hangs together much better. And I think that the changes y'all made from the top down to the ground floor really have grounded this building in a much more solid way. So I really appreciate the thought and the study that went into it. I think it's really coming along.
Thank you.
All right, does anybody else on the commission have any questions?
So I agree with Sherry. I think the refinements to the middle piece help it feel grounded, but also cohesive. I have a little more concern about the materiality of the kind of, I guess that's the westernmost piece. I mentioned it last time. The horizontal board siding, 45 appears, I mean, these are materials of high quality in the brick, the masonry materials facing on Broadway. I think the success of the clapboard piece and hanging together with that and also creating that same feeling of quality is really dependent on the detailing. And I appreciated the updates you provided on that. One of the things I'd suggest is that for this piece, we make the recommendation to the planning board that material mock-up be provided. And then also highlight priority design guideline related to the horizontal shingles and siding. One other comment, I think, and actually this is a good image to talk about it. At 45, there's the masonry material at the ground floor, and it looks like there is a cornice piece or separation between the upper floors and the ground floor. And I think that's helpful in creating that distinction. I don't see and it's subtle too. It's not some giant cornice projecting out, which we see too often. But I think 51 would benefit from that level of refinement as well, just creating a distinction between the ground floor and the upper floors. Last comment on that piece, appreciate that you included the perspective of the corner you didn't have last time, because I think that'll be pretty visible from the highway and from other points from Assembly Row. I wonder if there's the possibility to create, some more vertical distinction between those sides of the building. It feels very uniform coming around that corner now, but whether it is, the impression of a bay at regular intervals or something to help break that up and create vertical distinction on those set facades.
Yeah, I'll Tim,
I tried to say Deborah, sorry, I was muted.
Tim, I totally agree with you about the transition between on the west side between the brick base. It seems there's so much articulation in around the whole building, and that the brick base at that side at the retail level is pretty inarticulate, and the transition to the clapboard is, I think there needs some articulation before, as it transitions to that point. And I agree, Tim, about the back. If there could be some, I don't know how landscape this is going to be, but I think, sort of the proportions are a little funny with the 3 and then the 2 above it. And, maybe it's not as rigorous about, the color change happening at the floors, but rather, it floats up a little bit up into the, that 3, the band of 3, the darker, what do you call it? Siding, the hardy, I don't know if it's hardy, but the cementitious board, between the darker color up to the lighter color, maybe it creeps up a bit, so the proportions are a little better from the highway side. But again, I think the most important thing, I think this is, I think it has come a long way. I think it started strong, and I think it's, the developments, make a difference and have gone in the right direction, with the exceptions of those couple of things.
Thanks,
And did
sir.
you figure out what the material was on the design wall?
It's off the top of my head, no, but I do understand we can get variations in the length and some of the width. So I think we would propose a little bit more finite detail the next time when we go to planning.
Yeah, but again, I think, if it were zinc, I think that could be, maybe that's too light a material for you at this point, but you know, I think the patina, that could be really wonderful.
Mhm.
If it does come in that product and it is a, you know, something that does patina.
I will say also, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I don't know if when they refer to zinc, it's a color of.
Yeah,
you know,
usually it's a color that they.
then it would not change. It would not patina.
I will say that I totally agree with the transition between the masonry and the lap siding. We definitely need a cast stone band there of some sort or cornice line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
I've got a question about the streetscape. There's a lot of landscaped areas in between the face of the building and the pedestrian zone of the sidewalk, which I think generally is actually a really nice thing to have landscape, you know, within that zone. But it's a lot of it, and this is primarily retail along the storefront here, and it doesn't look like you're relying too much on this area for your green score. Is there a balance between the landscape areas and then also providing space for these retail establishments to spill out onto the street and really activate the street?
Yeah, we have some seating kind of integrated into the planting closest to the building, as well as the streetscape furnishing zone itself. I think we could look at potentially creating more of zones, but at the same time, we do want to keep this kind of a soft kind of lush front as well. So we can look into that.
Okay.
I would say overall the updates look great. I like the change in materials at the bay on 45, and then, you know, the incorporation of the deflating of the brick and then transitioning to 51. I agree with. I think the moves in the centerpiece are successful. I think it works, and then agree with the comments about a little more detail on the west side. I think I did have a question, I guess, for my fellow commissioners. Just based off of the MR6 design guidelines, it does mention that the horizontal siding should be avoided for this district. In this case, you know, it's broken down massing wise, where it's not a huge wall of lap siding. It's more, has like a 3-story reed. So in that sense, I think it's successful. I think on the end wall, it starts to get very, very large and expansive. So just in terms of the use of materials and massing and kind of the design review guidelines, I'd like to hear from the other commissioners, I guess, kind of use of material, and then maybe like the massing at the end.
I agree with you, Tim. That's I think we should highlight that as a priority design guideline. I'm not, you know, totally opposed to its use. I'm not saying it needs to be switched to brick, but I think the same attention to detail and articulation that was paid on 45 is going to need to be paid here for that really to be as successful.
All right, let me ask a quick clarifying question.
Sarah.
Guideline for the horizontal siding. Is that something that you want to apply to just 51 Broadway or both buildings?
Sorry, Sarah, that you cut out in the beginning part of the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we want the horizontal siding priority design guideline to apply to both projects or just to 51 Broadway?
I think just, I mean, for me, I would say just to 51 because that's the only building that it's proposed on.
I would agree. Yeah, I'm just reacting to the design guidelines and kind of the presentation from 51.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. right, are there any more questions or comments, or do we think we're ready to vote?
I'd be
All
ready to
right.
vote.
I think we're ready to vote. So the first vote we need to take is on the preferred facade, which I think we have narrowed it down. So can I get a motion to approve the facade as was presented this evening on the 45 Broadway project?
Did we already vote on that last time, or do we need to vote?
That's actually
Yeah,
a
I think-
good question for Madison. Because I know this is a combination of the previous versions.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I know we did vote on something. I think it was the facade.
It was
Yeah,
the
You're right.
facade
It's actually in the meeting minutes that
Yeah.
we will be reviewing.
that we haven't adopted yet because we took things
Right,
out of
no,
order.
yes.
Thank you, Tim. At least I have people keeping me straight. All right, then let's not have that motion. How about a motion on that for 45 Broadway, the design guides have been met with the additional advice to the planning board that an on-site material mock-up is provided.
So moved.
I will second.
Okay, moved by Tim Talon, seconded by Deborah. All right, roll call vote. Tim Hood,
Yes.
Deborah Fennick,
Yes.
Sherry Ruane,
Yes.
and Tim Talon.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Now moving on to 51 Broadway. What I have in my notes is that the design guides have been met. There is there's a priority design guideline for the horizontal siding to be further studied on the end elevation to break it down in a similar fashion as the 3-story area on the front elevation. Did I capture that?
I'm not sure I'd even describe it as in the same way as the 3-story elevation in front, because it's pretty uniform.
Okay.
But I think just breaking up that,
Breaking out the
adding-
expanse of the horizontal siding.
yeah, vertical articulation.
Okay.
Someone, do we take a vote first on the design guidelines and then go through the additional design guidance?
Yes, we can do that. I think that's, so we need a motion that the design guidelines have been met for an MR6 building for 51 Broadway. Sherry,
So moved, yes.
okay, second,
Second.
seconded by, let's throw Tim Hood in there. All right, roll call vote. Sherry.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Tim Talon,
Yes.
Deborah Fennick,
Yes.
and Tim Hood.
Yes.
All right, thank you all from that crunchiness. Sherry, fly safely.
I hope you're not on Spirit.
All
So-
right, so now we need to take a vote on the additional design guidance.
Well, can I first
yeah.
just make a motion that we identify, I think it's design guideline R, in my
R,
version,
okay.
but you'll have to check. I might have an old version. Horizontal, the design guideline related to shingles.
I don't have that in front of me right now. All right, we will follow up with that, but the priority design guideline for horizontal.
Yeah, I think
Siding?
it reads horizontal or vertical board siding or shingles, regardless of material, should be avoided.
Okay. All right, so that's the, so we have the motion from Tim for priority design guideline of, guideline R. Should we take a vote on that? Let's take a vote on that first. Do we have a second?
Can you clarify what the motion is again?
So we are allowed to emphasize, priority design guidelines that must be, sort of looked at further. And so this design guideline is being flagged for that.
Okay,
I think-
I second. I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, before we vote, a clarification, we are sort of accepting it, aren't we? By accepting this option?
I think yes, and I think our design guidance is gonna have to make that clear. We're highlighting it so the planning board's aware that this is something we've looked at, and we're gonna be requesting additional information on to
Okay.
evaluate.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Okay, so that's where I think it's flagging that design guideline and maybe adding just for the clarification of note keeping that, sort of it, while this design guideline, sort of this proposal doesn't meet it, it is well articulated as far as the design of the building goes. So I think we can add some verbiage along those lines, and so we'll review that if that makes sense, because I want to make it clear for the planning board as to we're
Yeah.
capturing what
Yeah, and
you're
I think
saying.
I think what we're saying is, generally this design guidelines exists. It says the material should be avoided. We're not saying that it should be avoided in all cases, but a little additional information is going to need to be provided to,
Okay.
show that it's being done in an acceptable way.
All right, and are we comfortable that that can be shown at the time of the mock-up review?
Would that be prior to building permit, or is that?
No, it would not. So then let's ask for a condition that the building permit set be shared with the UDC for review. Is that comfortable?
Yeah.
If that can be done, that would be, yeah.
Okay.
I think, and we've done it before where people have just, even in the virtual format, just come, shown a material board and a couple of the key details, a corner detail, window jamb detail, sill, things like that.
Yep.
Yeah, if I may, we'd be more than happy to present that to you all at that time.
And I can assure you, it's not our intent to have one end of the building very high quality, and the other end of the building look really cheap. So we're going to pay very close attention to the detailing and the way we assemble the skin of 51.
Yeah, it looks like from the elevation, there's could be some banding at the floor lines. It's kind of reflected in the renderings at the rear, not the highway side of the building, and then the end. But it's a little hard to tell if that's kind of like the dimension of that band, and if that's the siding as well.
Now let me ask a clarifying question, because I'd had the rear elevation as a separate design advice. Do we want to talk about the rear elevation and the balancing the proportions, using the materials and colors differently? So do we want that as a separate guidance piece than the siding guideline that we have just been discussing?
I think I would say yes. I
Okay,
think this is just identifying that as a priority design guideline, and then we'll probably have a list of additional design guidance items.
okay. All right. So then if we can make I'm going to recommend to you that the motion be that design guideline R is a priority design guideline regarding the horizontal siding. As it is well designed and needs to be followed through and broken down with vertical articulation on all sides of the building. And then we'll just leave it at that for right now, as far as the summarizing the priority guideline. Does that feel right?
I think that's fine. I think, or we could just say, highlight this as a priority design guideline, subject to compliance with the additional design guidance. And then
Okay.
deal with it there.
All right, so moved. And I think we already had Tim Hood. Can I put you down as a second again?
Yes, I second.
Okay, all right, so let's do a roll call vote on the priority guidelines. So Tim Hood,
Yes.
Tim Talon,
Yes.
and Deborah Fennick.
Yes.
Okay. I have a number of other pieces. So the first is from a process standpoint that we condition that the revised elevations that are submitted for building permit are submitted to the Urban Design Commission for review with a material palette. The second one would be that there is an on-site material mock-up for UDC review.
I'm not sure if there needs to be both, but I
Both,
defer
okay.
to the other commissioners.
I would say in this case, the mock-up would not be needed. I would probably just be okay with the drawings.
Yeah, I think coming,
Okay.
and so it would be elevations, material selections, and key details.
Yeah. All right, and that is when building permit is submitted.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right, the other additional design advice that I noted was the cornice, and we are talking about 51 Broadway here. The cornice with the transition between the brick base and the clapboard siding needs to be refined and articulated. And then also coming back to the rear elevation to balance the proportions of the split between the materials and color to better articulate the rear elevation. Are there any that I missed?
Yeah, I think it's between the lower and the upper portions, as Deborah described, and perhaps also adding some vertical articulation to break up the overall mass.
All right.
And then I would just ask if there is any sort of clarification about if there is any sort of banding at the floor line. What is that detail and how does that look?
And is that something that can be answered at the building permit set submission?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
I've got one more item,
Yep.
just balancing seating areas with paving areas along the streetscape to create an active streetscape.
Okay. Yeah, that one I was gonna ask if you wanted to add that one too. So, all right, so then that is, yes, the study more outdoor seating amongst the landscaping at the building base for the retail spaces. Okay, all right. All right, so that should be 4. As best as I can tell. Are we good with those 4? And do you need me to try to read them back? Okay.
I think a summary would
Okay,
be great. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So the first one is that there is a condition for the building permit set to be provided to the UDC with a presentation of the final elevations, the materials, and key details. The second one is that the cornice needs to, the transition between the brick base and the clapboard siding needs a cornice or a refinement of that transition. Third one is the rear elevation needs to be revisited to have the horizontal banding clarified and the better balance of the proportions between the materials and colors. And then finally, the fourth one would be potentially increase more outdoor seating at the building base amongst the landscape for use of the retail spaces. All right, I'm seeing nods. Yay.
Yep.
All right, so with all of that said, do I have a motion?
So motion.
So moved by Tim Hood, second,
Second,
seconded by Deborah. All right, roll call vote. Tim Hood,
Yes.
Tim Talon,
Yes.
and Deborah Fennick.
yes.
All right. Thank you very much, team. Hopefully, you got all that back and forth, and are ready to move forward. So congratulations.
Thank you very much, Sarah, Tim, Deborah. Looking forward to working with you on this one, Sarah.
Great project. Thank you.
Thanks
Yeah.
all.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you all.
Yep. Have a great night.
Have a
Happy
good
holidays.
evening.
You too.
All right. Thank you all for bearing with me on that one. All right, so we will, as we're in design review mode, Andrew Abba, if you can hear us, you are more than welcome to rejoin the meeting at this point in time. And we will continue with the design review for 382 McGrath Highway. So if the applicant team could raise their hands so Madison can unmute you. And also let us know who will be presenting. To the commission, this is an MR4 residential building. We will this evening need to be voting on the massing, as well as the facade and the design guidelines.
Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Wenjit. I will be present the 382 Matt Grave Street. Yeah, and let me see, can I share my screen?
Yeah, good evening. I would recommend that you keep your presentation to 20 minutes or less, just so that we can keep the meeting moving forward. So thank you.
Yep, will do. Okay, can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we will start from the site first. The project is situated in the heart of Somerville, within 0.5 mile of Greenland Station, which some Greenland will be down around there. And our project is planned to renovate the existing building with additional floor on top to make total 11 condos with sustainability goal of a net zero. So this is a existing condition currently. Also create a vibrant living environments connect with the neighborhood. By doing that, we not only design the buildings, we also look our surrounding conditions. Currently existing site condition, there's a lot outdoors there. It gives potential risk to assess, especially during the snowing day and raining seasons. Based on the photo we show on point A and point B. So when we doing designs, we will address those and make the ground marble easier to access and more engaged. Yeah, and also currently the accessible place for the second upper floor, it's from this staircase and another staircase up and then into the buildings. But when we doing relook at it, we will try to use one main entrance as a access point. So when we start designs, this on the left is the existing building axon. And so first, we are lowering the front side contours to enhance accessible while create a shared space. So by lowering the contours, it's allowed to gain less staircase and also easier to access from the main entrance of building. From the building massings, we try to keep two main ideas. One, create a ground level addendum line to fit existing street elevation. Create a approach human scale entrance buildings. So this is one that each option we try to maintain this. And second is upper floor setback with balcony to break down the scale of blend into the surrounding urban fabric. So based of those two ideas, we create three massing options. Option one, it's called point. By basically we point each side of the building massings to create this accessible roof balconies for the space. Option two, it's incorporating by incorporating the adding an outdoor balcony, but in the same time that create a shadow for the lower levels. On the options three is a scooping. Scooping, instead of one big massing values, we scoop into break down into several different massings and create a more enclosure space. And based on three those massings, we develop. We also look at possibility of the plan layout. And here's some options. We also think about should the amenity be on the ground level or on the basements. So we can see some different options in here. For when we start looking at the interior part, comfort of interior environment, it's one the priority, and also the lower future operation expense. Several features we've been incorporated into enhance. One is the daylighting. We try to maximize more daylightings and also reduce amount the energy use through the exterior skins, and we will see together pretty soon. And and some option of a unit layout, either by being long vertical this orientation or being layout as this kind of orientations. For the elevation studies of the three options, for the exterior of the based on the goal of a net zero perspective, we chose one high performance glazing system with a gray R value and solar gain coefficient of a different orientation to maximize the solar heat gain and reduce energy use. Second, building envelope is continued exterior insulation to minimize thermal breach to maintain high thermal performance of exterior wall assembly, and also provide a clean energy of a domestic use. And here is some three options of a material choice and material color tones of the massing study that we were looking at. We also chose one to do a file develop, and we'll see each other soon. The option 2 is the one we chose for photo develop. We use a fiber cement panel siding of and with glaze on the upper floor, which were here, and then wood tone panels, which are here, highlight entrance. While periphery panels, were those, work on with the gardens on the street level, and create a pedestrian-friendly threshold with a dynamic cityscape space. This were the main entrance I was mentioning earlier. We also provide the bike park space and also some gathering space in here. Sometimes we also give the roof roof share space. And also the elevations. For further, there's more detail into the floor plans of option 2. On the ground level, floor 1, we have a gym. We have amenity space such as gym, a business center, mail storage, and so on the left side we have the parking space, parking bike for bike on the outside, and then left side is the dumpster, and then on the basement we have unit 1 and storage space and mechanical room, and upper floor will be 1 unit, floor unit 4, unit 5, and unit 6. Into upper floor 7 and 8, they were something like this, and also 10 and 11, and share outdoor patio space with gardenings. And also when we look into the designs, we also make sure the buildings meet with all the zoning codes, and here's the summary of we have overall buildings data. And thank you for listening on the presentations. And is there?
Did I miss a landscape plan or detail?
I would be able to share with you our landscape plan version. Allow me to share.
Can you share now, Madison? Did you give sharing privileges to
Yeah.
Michael? All right, awesome.
I'll just kind of run you guys. Can you guys see that all right? guys see that?
We can see your screen,
Yes.
yes.
So just kind of the main points about the landscape were, improving the relationship between the public realm and the building itself. And so, at first that was street trees, but there are existing overhead wires. So we've had to go with bike spaces, short-term bike spaces. And then that brings us over to the left side of the building where we have some long-term spaces over permeable pavers, all retained up. To kind of create some sort of buffer between the neighbors and kind of break apart that grade change. It's worth noting we kind of have a proposed fence around the entirety of the site to not exceed 6-foot height from the abutters finished grade as a security measure. Should they have fences or not, if they were to fail, that kind of opens up to liability. Native plantings, access ways to get in. We're here on the right side. Where the dumpster area is, that would be an ADA accessible access way into the building, while also keeping that slope walk not too steep so that we can have dumpsters there as well. Now going up to floors 2 and 3, more or less just working on the balconies proposed by the architecture team, adding some lightweight planters. You're going to the 4th floor, the common patio area, looking at installing lightweight planters rather than intense or extensive green roof areas, to kind of make ease of maintenance. Also kind of create some height to create a little bit of a buffer between the surrounding buildings, which are kind of set up a little bit higher as the grade's kind of very variable in the area. Then a sedum roof tray roof, built with a green score. And one important thing, my apologies, to note about these balconies would be wood privacy screens that are also used for safety as well. That creates a buffer between the neighbors and the actual residents using this. So those would be the main implementations of our proposed landscape scheme for creating the draft.
Thank you for that. I'm going to take chair privileges for a second and ask the architectural team, given that this is a total of 11 units, I think you said,
Yes.
where would the transformer be located, knowing that one will be required to supply this building?
Also on the basement level.
And has that been vetted with Eversource yet as a vaulted?
We're still under develop of this.
Okay, and it would have living space above it?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, I'm going to recommend that you reach out to them soon as possible. I have a feeling that will affect your design in the long run because they have rules about their vaulted transformers and how much building can be above.
Okay. Thank you. Building voltage.
All right, so now I'm going to hand it over to the commission. Deborah.
Oh, so this is a context question. I know McGrath Highway is going through redevelopment or some redevelopment, and I'm curious, maybe this is more of a landscape question, but this is the current condition, but what's the future condition going to be? And what considerations, I don't know if there are any considerations for that future condition.
Yes, in terms of landscape, future considerations would be widening the pedestrian right of way, kind of implementing more street trees to kind of create some sort of buffer between the McGrath Highway, which is elevated a little bit above where the building sits itself, kind of the whole street. That's kind of where we get heading.
It was a little hard to hear you. Your mic is a little distorted, but were you saying that there's going to be a lot of landscape? There's going to be street trees and that kind of development at this location?
not at this particular location as it
Much better, thank you.
as it doesn't quite warrant it, but
Mhm.
it's something we did think about and would love to have, be able to do.
Deborah, and on that note, I do think this is one of those locations where McGrath will be at grade. So it will change the street frontage. I do not know at this point in time what the MassDOT current thinking is on their initial drawings as to whether there will still be the what I'm going to call the slip lanes, or sort of how that's going to change. But I think that's something just out of my curiosity I will ask about.
Yeah, I guess hard to find much on that. Okay, that was, thank you for providing that.
I got a question.
We have Andrew. You didn't raise your hands, Tim. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm struggling with this on the phone. Yes, I have a question. I feel like in the presentation, I'm looking at 3 different versions of the front entry. On the architectural plan, it's kind of a very wide ramp. I'm seeing in the landscape plan, this sort of ramp combination, and then the rendering just looks like stairs across. So my question is, what is the version that is being proposed for the front entry?
We can do for the front entrance, we can do about 4 degrees of ramp up.
I think I guess it's sort of a leading question. I think that this presentation needs to be better coordinated so that we're looking at one thing instead of kind of taking our best guess as to what is the actual proposed condition. But that's kind of the backwards leading comment. I think the other piece too is I'm happy to see this landscape plan. This was not what was submitted as part of the materials that we looked at earlier in the week. So it's really helpful to get this to us ahead of time. So I'm kind of looking at things, fresh after having already seen something that really didn't answer a lot of the questions. The thing that jumps out just in seeing it tonight is I believe the zoning calls for 12 feet from the back of curb or front of curb. And the landscape plan right now is showing 9 feet in terms of the total streetscape space. So we're missing some space there in what's being shown, and it would be great to know if that's a drawing error, or if we have a building that's not designed towards code.
Yep, we'll apply the more yeah, sorry for the presentations confused, but we'll provide the more clear details on this.
Yeah, and just to Andrew's point, from a zoning perspective, that is required for compliance.
Yes.
Andrew, did you have something else?
Yeah, I think just building on Sarah's point too, it would be great to know where that transformers go if it lands in the landscape, which it probably does.
My suspicion is it's going to conflict with the dumpster. Is my hunch given my experience with Eversource. All right, I'll stop talking about electricity and let Tim talk about urban design issues.
I was also a little confused about the landscaping. Same comment about the materials provided versus what was presented. I was just a little confused in looking at the landscape drawing versus what was presented. And then looking at some of the 3D renderings, it looked like there was sidewalk plantings below the windows. I didn't catch if that was represented in the landscape plan that was presented. I didn't see it in the materials that we were provided. I was also a little confused about the massing options. Just a general question: are you proposing to hold where you point to facade not this page, but page 7. All 3 of these options point to, I guess, facade 1. And then the other planes of the exterior, they're pushed and pulled and they're moved back. So I was confused about what was being suggested or presented. Is it like, are you maintaining the structure of the first floor and then kind of like restructuring floors 2 and 3 and then adding the new floor on top of it? And then the renderings that were presented, is that supposed to represent option 2?
Yes, the renderings represent the option 2. And we are renovate the lower floors and we're adding 1 new floor, and the top one, it's the new floor that we're adding in. And because it's on the zoning setback that we set at 30 foot we set back 30 foot, so it give the possible for the rooftop share amenities.
So do these options, are they proposing like a partial demolition of the exterior at the street side so you could achieve the massing as shown?
Yes, for the like entry areas, things like that, we do demo out. Like you can see the existing. So this is the existing part, and we are demo out this area to show for the entrance of the building.
And to Tim's point, I think the other massing options would require carving more out than just the entry to get those.
Yes, option 3 will require a few cover more out the space on the left side of the buildings.
So in option 1 and 2, you would be adding to the existing facade. Option 3, you would be doing some exterior demolition.
Yes.
Stock, like top wall, bottom wall stock grades on the landscape plan, just to help us understand that a little bit better.
Sorry, Andrew, I couldn't hear us very clear. Could you repeat one more time?
It'd be great to get some top of wall, bottom of wall spot grades on the landscape plan, just to help us understand the scale of some of those walls as they're being proposed.
Will do.
As you're talking about the facade, the existing ground floor, I mean, I think this is where now there's conflict with the requirement of having a 12-foot sidewalk. So the facade cannot stay in place, or else you're out of compliance with the sidewalk requirements.
You talk about the ground floor, right? Floor 1. So the existing currently buildings, the location was right at the edge of the sidewalk. So
Yeah, I think this might
Yes.
need clarification from ISD. If this is an existing building in a sort of renovation versus brand new construction. So I think we've got some compliance issues here that need to be reviewed, but thanks for flagging that, Courtney. I had missed that one too.
So in general, though, is the strategy to keep the envelope of these lower and upper floors and reclad it? So the plane of the wall that we're seeing here on all sides of the building, that becomes the exterior plane of the proposed building? Am I understanding that right? You're not setting back the lower floor, right? You're keeping that plane.
No.
where it
Yes.
is. And then you're
Yes.
just adding, putting in a
Yes.
addition on top. So
Yes.
the,
We just
so
add
the
in
balconies on floors 2 through 4, which kind of are not parallel, make the face of the building not parallel to the street, which I like a lot, but appear to be farther in. It puts the face of the building farther in than this face of the existing building. So do you need to demolish the corner of the building to build those?
for
Yeah.
on this photo that you see on the right side, there will be the balcony that coming out, right? Based on and then on this side we will filling in the corners to create instead there's a cutting line here. We will continue this edge out.
So I think maybe a suggestion for when you come back is if you can include the outline of the existing buildings on your plans as a dashed line, and then we can see the relationship between those. There's also, there's some topography along the frontage here. So I think that needs to be shown both in your renderings and the plans. But stepping back, I think the overall form that you're proposing is nice, and I think pretty compelling. When I first looked at it, the first impression, I had the impression that the proportion was somehow similar to triple decker with a bay and then projecting balconies on one side, and this is kind of a reinterpretation of that form. But I think there's a lot of questions about the details of this here, and those would be good to clarify. Also, landscape plan shows permeable pavers in the area that appears here to be under building cover there. So there's no ability for water to ever permeate through the permeable pavers. Likewise, it's not clear here if is the trash room, is it fully enclosed? Is that a roof over top of it? Or is this just a kind of cornice piece that's coming up and over?
Yeah, so oh, sorry. Yeah, any
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, so to answer the trash areas, so this sorry, let me see. Yeah, so we have the gate to provide to and able to lock the doors to for the trash area, but there's no covers on the top, so it will be open airs.
Yeah. So again, just the extent of that would be helpful to see on the level 2 plan, so we can look down and understand what that is, where that roof is.
Seems there are a lot of questions about this project, and its viability, and I wonder how far we can go with comments, with some of the, the questions that have been asked this afternoon. And usually the Urban Design Commission is presented with 3 options, and we discuss the options before one's chosen. I think I'm comfortable with proceeding with option 2. But I feel like there's not much more, I feel like there's fundamental questions that have been asked that could change this, dramatically, both in terms of spatial conditions and technically. So, I wonder what we can do tonight to keep this moving, and what you need to step back and provide additional information for. It's really, I think it's really hard for me to see, understand this in relationship to the existing building as a fundamental thing, because that's such an important part of this project. So at any rate, that's yeah, I wonder where we should go tonight.
Yeah, that's I think a really good point, Deborah. maybe it's provide the guidance that we have provided. I'd say in addition to what we've talked about, some more detail on materiality. When you saw the prior presentation that was given where there were specific images of the material types, we were talking about specific products. I think we want to get into that type of detail here as well.
Can I ask a
concur
quick
with that. Yeah, I concur with that. I think there are big questions, like big questions that are day one things that should be answered that aren't in this presentation. And building on that, I know our charge is to kind of get in and out into 2 rounds, but this one feels underbaked in round 1 to the point where I would expect, and I'm asking for a little leeway to give us 3 rounds on this one, probably.
I hear you loud and clear, Andrew. I think to everybody's point is a lot more information does need to be provided. Our case planner on this one is out. It was out sick and couldn't be here this evening. So I will coordinate with her when she's well, just to make sure, so question some of these compliance issues that have been raised and make sure that we are good. For the UDC, I'm going to recommend at this point that we make a motion to continue this project, knowing that, you know, we can't really vote. The one thing I do want to clarify is, while we're not voting on the massing right this evening, are you comfortable knowing that this team has chosen option number 2 to pursue? Are you comfortable with them still pursuing that particular design? Or are there more investigations you would like them to do based on the other massing options?
I think typically for a building in this district, MR4, we don't see massing options. We see facade options. So, you know, in that sense, appreciate seeing massing options. You know, personally, I'd be comfortable with proceeding with the option 2 that was presented.
Okay.
Yeah, me as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I
right.
think that option seems reasonable.
All right.
But
Terrific.
it may change a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We learn whether the, you know, we need a 12-foot curb and the transformer comes out of, you know, all this stuff. So I would say, you know, if it can be pursued, you know, technically be pursued, then.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure the team had some guidance that they weren't trying to explore other other avenues as well. So.
So moved.
All right. All right. So the motion to can continue this project until the next meeting that the applicant is ready. All right. I think we have I'm gonna take your so moved, Deborah, as the
All right.
as
I'll second. I second.
Tim Talon seconds. Roll call vote. Deborah.
Yes.
Tim T.
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
And Tim H.
Yes.
All right, thank you, team. We will see you at a future meeting. So and as I mentioned, I will coordinate with Raisa when she is well and give her an update on the conversation. So have a good evening.
Thank you guys very much.
Have a great evening.
All right, at this point, we're going to do a bit of general business.
Sarah, I've got one item before that. I realized we didn't take a vote on design guidance for 45 Broadway. We took it for 51, but we didn't for 45.
The vote that we took was for the material mock-up.
I think we took a vote noting that design guidelines were satisfied. But
Yeah,
I'm not sure we took one on
one for
the
additional guidance.
Yeah, additional
Actually,
guidance.
Kristen, can you clarify that in the notes? please, did we take a vote on, or Madison? On the additional design guidance for 45 Broadway?
Yeah, looking at my notes, I have that you guys pull them back up. Yeah, you wanted a design guideline to be provided to the planning board.
That was for 51. Highlighted one of the design guidelines.
Right. Yeah, that
So I
was
think-
51.
So I'm wondering, is there an issue with, I think it was relatively limited, but just, I mean, does the proponent have to be here for us to take a vote? Could we just take a vote on?
Do
just
I,
so-
do
so
I need
moves
to
forward?
recuse myself from this right now?
Not right now. How about we do this?
Okay.
Just because we have Andrew here right now, let's do the general business and then circle back to the 45 Broadway vote.
Okay.
Tim, would you
Sorry,
be okay
sorry.
with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry to throw that wrench in there.
No, that's all right. I know we had talked about the materiality in the mock-up, but that is probably a good point. All right, so first of all, meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments or have noted corrections needed for the meeting minutes for from the November 14th, 2023 meeting?
I had one comment. There was a note about coordinating with revising the land. Well, see, I wish I had them in front of me right now. I don't. It had to do with coordinating with Mass DOT to pick up the trash in the area and improve the landscape in the area between the building and the highway. The notes note that design modifications would be required to accomplish this. And I think just that portion should be removed because I don't think that was part of the discussion. I think we had discussed that it was perhaps difficult to coordinate with Mass DOT, but the proponent would still pursue that.
Okay. All right, Madison, do you happen to have those in front of you? That you can read that section?
I don't have them in front of me, but I can make a note to remove that.
All right, so with the edit that Tim had just suggested, anybody else have any comments? Or can we get a motion to approve as noted?
So motion.
All right, motion by Andrew, seconded by Deborah. Roll call vote. Andrew,
Yes.
Tim T,
Yes.
Tim H,
Yes.
and Deborah.
Yes.
All right, thank you for that. The final piece of general business is the recommendation on the 142 Cross Street. So are there has that recommendation been reviewed, and are there any comments or concerns? Seeing none, all right, I think we're good. We don't actually have to motion or vote on that, but seeing no additional comments. All right, with that, Andrew Abba, you are recused. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Bye,
And
guys.
we will circle back to 45 Broadway. And the question on the table was voting on any design guidance to be provided for 45 Broadway. So what would we like to, for record keeping at the moment, I was not taking, without looking at the minutes, and Kristen might not be available to read back to us. I'm gonna recommend that we do take a vote.
I've got 3 items.
All right,
If it's, the first is that the metal panels should be a gray or a charcoal or a zinc, not black.
okay,
That the textured brick be set back from the plane of the flat brick. And then that windows be provided into the bike room. I think that just wasn't clear from the images and elevations.
all right. Does anybody else have any additional?
No, those are good.
All right. All right, well, with that, all right, so we have a motion that the metal panels be either gray, charcoal, or zinc, but not black. That the textured brick be set back from the main plane of the facade brick. And that there need to verify that there are windows into the bike room. All right, with that, Tim, I'm going to give you the motion on that one since
Sure.
you articulated it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Deborah. Roll call vote. Tim Hood,
Yes.
Deborah Fennick,
Yes.
Tim Talon.
Yes.
All right, there we go. Thank you for that. And I will double check the meeting notes and make sure that we can clear up any consolidation or missing pieces in the order that we have there. And therefore, unless Tim, you want to bring up some other votes we'd like to have?
No, I'm done. I'm done. Let's go.
All right. I think Tim Talon just motioned to close the meeting at 7:45 p.m.
I second that.
Seconded by Deborah. Roll call vote. Deborah,
Yes.
Tim Hood,
Yes.
and Tim Talon.
Yes.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Good night. Happy
Have a good
holidays.
night.
Yes, happy
Night,
holidays.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.